Okay, so last Wednesday I recorded it, but the video had a technical issue and it wasn't recorded in the Facebook, so I don't know what happened. So I'm trying to make a video for the Wednesday Bible study. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go into our Facebook page, which you're already, if you're watching it, you're already there. If you go down a couple times, you'll see the Wednesday night Bible study materials already on there, and just follow along with that. That's what I'm going from. This is a video about skinship and intimacy. So here we go. So if you go to Romans chapter 12, verse 9 through 12, and that's where we're going to use our base for our Bible study. And when we talk about skinship, or I guess intimacy, we're not just talking about sex. We're talking about how we could get close, what in the relationship, and we're not just talking about relationship between men and women, but also we're talking about relationship between parents and children. We even talking about relationship between God and us. So we have to be in that context, and I'll be talking about that in the context. Obviously, we will be talking about some parts of it is about physical intimacy as well, and why do we need them? How can we use it more properly? What will be the best way for us to use that for our advantage? So let's look at Romans chapter 12, verse 9 through 12, and I'm going to read them. Give me a minute. Okay, here we go. So it says, love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. So that is the context we'll be working off from. And let's go with the definition. And the definition says it defines skinship as, in the Webster's dictionary, it defines as a feeling or a relatedness and affection between two people, particularly a mother and child, caused by hugging, touching, and other forms of physical contact. That's the definition of skinship. The definition of intimate is the familiarity, something of personal or private nature. Okay? What is the biblical definition? Close relationship are part of God's will for human life. Scripture speaks of intimate relationship between Jesus Christ and the Father, between God and his people, and between various individuals. So if you could imagine, so there's Jesus and there's God, right? So they're Holy Trinity, right? Jesus, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that's a perfect Trinity, the triangle. And on the side of the triangle, there's us. So God and us, right? There's that intimate relationship. So what do we do with that, right? And we just have to understand there are many types of intimacy and skinship. And intimacy and skinship, we see a mother and child, right? Because according to a lot of the psychologists, they say kids who grew up being intimate with their parents from even as an infant, like being suckled, drinking directly from mother's milk, from mother's breast versus bottle milk, it's a lot more different. And the kids who grew up being intimate with their parent or mom, likely to succeed more, and they'll have more stable relationships. So, and they know how to develop that as well. Intimacy, skinship between partners. We see that in a usually men and women relationship. That also friendship as well. The close friends. We hug, and that's a skinship, and that's intimacy. We do not just allow anyone to just touch anywhere, parts of our body, especially nowadays with Me Too movements and all that. We have to be careful not to encroach on other people's, skin, right? So we don't want to be touching or anything like that. We have to be careful with that. So intimacy, also there's an intimacy between God and His creation. So that's a relationship, right, between God and us. So that's an intimate relationship. We call that intimate because it's a close relationship where we have to be exclusive, right? First of all, God already knows us as who we are and who we meant to be, but we don't know God really well, so we have to establish that relationship with God. So be careful. You have to be careful when we say that the intimacy and the relationship that we create between God is more important than anything else, because when we have a stable relationship with God, the intimate relationship with God, we are able to form other relationship with other people more stable manner, and we'll find better people for us that will fit for us. Not that we should be picky about who we meet, but you should be careful who you be intimate with, right? You can't just be intimate with anybody and anybody. If, for example, man or woman just sleeps around everybody, they have intimate issues. They have intimacy issues. They don't have issues with being intimate and being naked in front of other people, but in terms of relationship wise, they don't know how to really develop healthy, close relationship, the intimate relationship with one person, because there are a lot of factors goes into that, obviously, but one of the major reason is because they're unstable and doesn't know how to develop good relationship with other people. So intimacy and skinship is part of our life that we really need to understand what it is and how we control that, and first of all, before you can control and what it is and how do we do and how do we develop a good intimate and intimacy and skinship, we have to know what it is and how do we define that. It's not just about sex, or it's not just about just being close to one other person. It's about opening our heart to other people, where we are able to establish that closeness, where we are not afraid to be close to each other, and to the point where we could be skin to skin contact, which is very important in a relationship, even in the parents and child relationship. For me, I do not mind hugging my children, giving them kisses on the cheeks, telling them I love them. It's a reinforcement. The skin to skin touch is a reinforcement of intimacy. So that's a very important developmental part of children, and it's important for us as an adult as to establish, oh, you still like me, still love me type of assurance. So why do we need intimacy and skinship? Well, first of all, it's a way for us to establish deeper relationship with one another. And what I mean by that is, you can't say I'm close to that person until you establish that physical contact, as well as the connection, the intimate connection, that exclusiveness with another person. So you have friends, right? But you also have a best friend. What's the difference? Well, friends you just hang out with, but best friends you are more intimate with. You share more. You open up yourself a lot more. You could be vulnerable to your best friend, because you could trust them not to punish you, or where they do things that you know that they won't hurt you as much. So that's why, wife and husband relationship or boyfriend girlfriend relationship, that intimacy and skinship is so important, because if you don't know how to do that correctly, you're not developing a relationship really well, and eventually your relationship falls apart. Because sometimes what we do in a modern society, we tend to focus more on skinship, right? Instead of being intimate, instead of being vulnerable to one another. We don't know how to do that well. We don't know how to connect with each other really well, and we think being intimate physically is being connected, and that's not the only reason. You have to be connected intellectually, spiritually, and physically. Those three things has to come together to be called it intimate. Also, another reason is it gives us deeper understanding of one we are intimate with. So skinship allows that intimacy to occur. The intimacy, again, is not about physical intimacy, but also intellectually and mentally. You could open up your heart and be vulnerable towards that person. That's why when we break up in that relationship, if it was a lot of intimacy and skinship is involved, when we break up, it's just hard, because you've been exposed to that person, and you've been vulnerable, and you're trying to establish connection, and you made some connection, and when you break up, you have to cut that connection, and it hurts. That's why it hurts a lot, depending on how deep the relationship was, how deep the intimacy was, how deep the skinship was. But it's an opposite effect too. If you just intimate only physically and not intellectually or spiritually, doesn't hurt as much when you just leave, because you could just be physically intimate for that moment, and once the moment is done, you have no qualms or any pain to separate, because you didn't really establish anything. So another reason why we need intimacy and skinship is without intimacy, we are limited to light relationship that can never build into something better. So intimacy and skinship is important to establish, like I said, trust and foundational understanding that, okay, I'm allowing you to touch my body to let you know, signify that I am vulnerable towards you, or I am open to you, or I'm open towards being vulnerable. So that I could establish that one-on-one closeness relationship with you. That, again, this is not just between men and women relationship, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, or husband and wife, but also with parents as well, parents and child relationship, and also God and us. We have to have that close relationship. Although we don't have skinship relationship with God, we do have spiritual relationship where we have to be vulnerable before God to be considered intimate with God. Okay, so again, you can never develop full faith until you develop this intimacy with God. Okay, so why do we need? What is the power of intimacy and skinship? Well, first of all, when we have intimate relationship with God, our overall health in spirit and mental state is good. So if you go Exodus chapter 34:14, and it says God is a jealous God. Well, it's not literally God's going, I'm jealous. It's not like that. But he is saying, I want to be exclusive with you. I want to have one-on-one relationship with you. I want to have that closer relationship with you. I want you to be vulnerable towards me. Be vulnerable with me. So where I could help you and lead you and guide you. Right? Because if you're closed and guarded, it's hard for God to lead you, because you don't trust God enough to do that. Another reason, what is the power of intimacy and skinship? Well, we are able to form healthy relationship with others. If you are able to form an intimate relationship and a really good skinship with another person. Again, it doesn't have to be just a husband and wife or boyfriend girlfriend, but also a child. If you hold child's hands, right, or even just pray with them, hugging, those are very important. That brings assurance to a lot of the children, and that brings assurance and that close connectedness, and it's a healthy relationship between you and your child. So if you're having issues with your children, start with the skinship. Obviously, you can't just start grabbing them, right? But say, hey, can I pray for you? And if they allow, yes, and then you grab their hands and grab their hand and start praying. If you continue to develop that relationship, that intimacy and closeness and skinship, and they allow more, again, that intimacy will develop into being vulnerable, right? It's so hard for the parents to be vulnerable with their children, because from their very little, the children look up to you as a protector, as a guide, as somebody who is wiser, who is never vulnerable, who is a super person. But as they grow old, they realize you're not all that. You're not as smart. You're not as strong. You're not as whatever. So in order for the assurance that continues, say, hey, I want to try establish relationship with you where it's healthy and it's good and it's supportive, and also know that you're being vulnerable towards them and they appreciate that in the long run. But obviously you don't want to start being vulnerable too young, when they're too young, when they're a little bit old enough to understand what vulnerability is and how that works. So that it gives a great amount of assurance and confidence to the children, and they know how to develop healthy relationship with other people. Another power of intimacy and skinship is we are able to recover faster from broken relationship. So if you ever had a broken relationship, or you broke up with somebody, or your relationship didn't go well, know that it's I guess in a way where we understand how these things work, where if you're able to be through a broken relationship, we will see that those who know how to take care of or understand intimacy and skinship really well, they're able to recover faster. They say, okay, I am able to mend my pain and I'm ready to move on. Because a lot of people, some people who've been through a broken relationship and don't know how to mend it well, they will continue to be broken, and they'll find broken relationship after broken relationship. So if you find yourself, you're continuing to find broken relationship in your past, look into how you're dealing with that. How you're dealing with your intimacy. Are you being vulnerable? Are you being too vulnerable? Are you just being too open, where you're just allowing yourself to be taken advantage of? What is going on, right? And again, if you know how to establish really truly vulnerable with God, then you know how to be vulnerable through God, then you will establish a healthy relationship with people. You understand that relationship, it requires a lot of work. It requires being open, not just on your part, but as well as your partner. Whoever your partner may be, your child, or your boyfriend or girlfriend, or wife or husband, or even your mom or your dad, okay? So that is required. We are able to we are able to heal others through example of healthy relationship with God. So, like I said, if you know how to establish healthy relationship with God, then you are able to heal not only yourself, but you are able to heal others who've been through a horrible relationship, or not broken up through whatever relationship they had. So you're able to you should able to have the ability to heal others as well. When we have no intimate relationship with God, overall health in spirit and mental state needs a lot of work. So if you don't know how to establish intimacy and kinship correctly, first of all, you will find yourself constantly jumping from one relationship to another. So if you don't know how to be intimate, if you don't know how to get work the kinship, you will find yourself not being deep enough in the relationship or committed into relationship, or if you're too guarded, where your other partner is telling you like you need to open up more, you need to be vulnerable with me, and they'll tell you things like that, and you just like, no, I don't. That's very uncomfortable for me. Well, if you're like that, then you got to start with God. Establish relationship with God and yourself, right? Where you are able to say, oh, now I see where I need to be more vulnerable with God, and when I be healed from God and I learn how to deal relationship with God, then I know that I will be able to establish good relationship with other people. Second reason is you cannot form a solid relationship with others because you're always skin deep in that relationship. You don't really commit. You just like hover around that area just enough to give them satisfaction that you're committed enough for them, but you can't get any further than that. That's what happens when you don't establish intimate relationship with God. Third is we are only showing appearance of a good relationship with others, but inside you are constantly in pain or fear of rejection. Remember, when you don't establish that intimacy with your parents in the beginning of your childhood, you don't know how to do this. So you become more vulnerable to rejection. You are always constantly in fear of rejection, and you're always thinking about pessimistically about the relationship. If something, even a hint of things that not going right, you become very vulnerable to that. That's because you don't know how deep relationship works, because you didn't know how to do that with God. Okay. All right. Number 5 is we view intimacy and kinship differently. So men and women view kinship differently. Men and women deal intimacy differently. They view it and they feel and they see it differently. Understand that women and men view differently, right? So let's look at men. Men begin their intimacy through desire first. So they're not committed until they know they desire it. Okay. It's kind of funny how men work. Obviously, not all men, okay, works this way. However, many do. I know I do. I have to have a desire in order to commit to that. I just don't see why I need to until I want that. Then they go for it. They become intimate and they will be vulnerable. Not until they get desire. So remember that. Know that men's body react before emotional attachment can form. So men react. Say, let's say a beautiful woman touches a man's skin. Obviously, there are parts that men's part will be excited, as you know what I'm talking about. That's how they react. The men body reacts to the intimate touches and skinship. So before they could attach emotional response to that, they just like reacts first. And so don't get wrong. Don't get women out there. If you feel like, oh, my man, the men are such an animal. Well, that's how they were built, right? So you can't expect them to just turn it off, right? But have an understanding that they do react, react physically before emotionally. but they do eventually. So just give them time. You have to guide them sometimes. You have to teach them how to do that, but you need to do that. If you just wrap around yourself with his physical physiques or whatever, he's so handsome or whatever, you have to know that in an intimate relationship setting, men do react in that way. For men, being intimate with another is a security and excitement. So if men is men is about accomplishments, right? So if I form a good relationship with this woman, I accomplish something that I'm bringing security into my life. If I find a relationship, and also it's exciting for them because it's something new and something that they desire, right? So many fathers have difficult time with this because they don't know how to be intimate with their children. It's obviously you don't want to be intimate in that way physically, but intimate as in father-children relationship where they should, right? They should have that intimate relationship with their children. Where like me, where I would go hug my children without being weirded out, like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, why are you, they're not like that. You should able to have that relationship where they're comfortable with you, comfortable being vulnerable to you. And men, sometimes we go, oh, we're so macho, but you don't want that. You want to be vulnerable towards your children as they grow older. And so when you become vulnerable towards them and be more intimate with them, you will see that the relationship develop even much better and greater. Being intimate with another is highest form of love and validation of love between partners. For men, having physical intimacy and physical skinship is a part of how you put it, like, this is the highest form of the showing of the love. This is the highest form for them. Like, this is how much I love you. So if you're having some intimate relationship in bed, if you're husband and wife, then you need to look into that. And he's like, are you not desiring me? What is going on? Be more open with me. You have to be understanding. Especially women, you have to be understanding that men, again, they desire first, right? And they want to bring that security for themselves by you allowing you to be in their life. So men are not as easily attached emotionally as well as you can. Women are more susceptible for emotional attachment, while men are more goal-driven and physical. Okay, so remember that. But for women, women's response is different to intimacy, though. So women, they respond to intimacy in their frontal cortex. So what in frontal cortex is it's about judgment and decision. You make decisions and judgment in your frontal cortex, and so for women, this relationship, a lot of the relationship had to make sense. Even between men, even between with God, women likes to have that. Oh, I need to understand why this makes sense to me. So we need to understand that. We need to have that establish that understanding before you go into that relationship. For men, like, oh yeah, I'm good in bed or whatever. I'm physical. Oh, all that. This does not really. Maybe there's an initial attraction there, but eventually, what they want is not just how good you are physically, but it's more like, okay, what do you bring to this relationship? Why should I be intimate with you or be vulnerable with you in this relationship? So make sure men, please understand that women work differently, okay, in that way. Remember, they need to make it logical and they have to make sense for them. in order to get into that intimate and close relationship. Women must feel safe to be intimate with someone or develop desire. And that's true because women, though not all women, obviously, physically they're weaker than men, right? So they like to be protected. They like to be the one being protected rather than the one being protector. So know that women, they will not get intimate with you. They do not get into that skinship until they feel they're safe. They have to feel safe. They need to feel that I could trust you, not only physically but emotionally. That's one of the biggest part, where they need to be emotionally close, where their women are willing to be vulnerable in the relationship. But if man is not willing to or doesn't understand that part of that relationship, then women will not trust you into going into that further into the relationship. Intimacy for women is related to emotion, where they must emotionally feel safe with other. So remember that the intimacy for women is it's about the emotional attachment, right? Physically, if obviously physical aspects of the relationship is important for women as well, but they value emotional attachment a lot bigger than the physical, whereas men, they react to physical rather than emotion. Okay, so that doesn't mean all men just want to have sex. It's not that. It's just that they react to physical more. They react to skinship more than the women. Women, rather than skinship, they rather be relying on more of an emotional attachment, emotional intimacy. They value more to that. They put more stake in that. When women is intimate with someone, they are expressing full commitment to the relationship. Know that when they are being intimate with you physically, they're telling you that they are ready to commit into this relationship. They really want to go deeper. They want to be vulnerable. They want to be where they are really, they want to feel safe with you emotionally, not just physically. So what would happen in a wrong intimacy in the relationship, when the intimacy goes wrong in a relationship? Well, in an intimate skinship level relationship must be exclusive. You have to make it exclusive. Even with God is a what? Jealousy God, right? So you don't want to my one leg in the world and one leg in the guy. It doesn't work that way. It has to be exclusive. Okay, and if you know how to be exclusive with God, you know how to be be exclusive in with other people. God doesn't allow anything or anyone to be above him in the relationship. So if you look at Matthew 27 1 through 66, 2 Corinthians 5:21, God says, I want you, and exclusively you, in this relationship. So you want to learn how to do that, and you want to understand why, right? God is a loving God, and he wants to give you as much as you can in the blessing terms of blessings, of whatever blessing that you need. God will provide that for you, but you have to be exclusive with that. You can't just go spiritual hunting, going, what about Buddha, what about, you can't do that. You have to be exclusive with God and stay with God, and that's what God desires of you to do. When we pursue intimacy only for physical aspect, then you will ruin your spiritual side of you. This means that you are seeking sinful desires and not beautiful relationship. So people who sleep around, they enjoy this engaging in one night stands or going outside of marriage. They do not understand this intimacy. they feel like that's intimacy. That way, if I could get close to physically getting close with somebody, if I could enjoy that excitement, maybe I will find somebody, then develop the detachment all of a sudden, and that is not the way. It never works that well. If you look at 1 John 2:16, your body is a flesh, and it only desires flesh. So if you only desire flesh, you can't really get into that spiritual side with God. And so if you have established a good relationship with God, then you understand, it's not just about spiritual, it's not just about physical desire, but it's about spiritual desire, a pure desire to love God and get to know God. That way, you will find a great, I think, the great way for you to understand God more clearly. When we pursue skinship for our fulfillment and desire, we will lose close relationship with God. So it's opposite effect, where if you don't desire, if you're only going after the physical parts of intimacy and skinship, then you can't be close to God, because God doesn't require that, right? God requires you to be spiritually close, spiritually connected intimately with God. Okay? Lastly, be intimate with God first. So pursue God first, then you will know how to be in a healthy relationship with others. Learning exclusivity with God will teach us what we and who to value in a relationship. If you're with God, if you're intimate with God, God will teach you how to be intimate with other people and who you need to be intimate with. We can't just go, you're a woman. As a man, if you're a woman, then I'll be intimate with you. You can't do that. You have to find somebody who is right for you, who you can connect with you, right? Because God prepares you for that. And also learn how to deal with others. Understand the art of dialogue with others first before intimacy. Dialogue is important in relationship. Dialogue is not about talking. Dialogue is not talking. Dialogue mostly is about listening and understanding. So if you really know how to do a dialogue, it's a beautiful art. A dialogue is an art. You have to learn how to do that. You have to learn how to dialogue with other people. So I'll probably do a video on that as well, and where you will find, if I know how to do a dialogue with another person, even with whoever that may be, it will help you. But you first learn how to do that through prayer, right? You learn how to dialogue with God, where you pray, but also learn how to listen when God speaks. Okay? All right. So lastly, talk to God and be patient in relationship and in intimacy. So always talk to God. Have that close relationship with God, intimate relationship with God, and everything else follows. And if you follow God's way, if you follow the way you have relationship with God with other people, you can never fail. So I hope this helps. I hope and pray that you will find a good, better understanding of what intimacy and skinship is all about and why we need them. God bless.